The sky above Harrow's Reach was quiet, too quiet. Captain Jackson Morrow stood at the edge of the observation deck, staring into the gray-blue haze that hung over the colony's mountains. The wind was thin here, and the air colder than it should have been for midsummer. Below, far beneath the surface of the planet, something ancient stirred, though it had only been born in secret a few years ago. The silence engine. Jackson pressed a hand against the cool steel of the railing. The mountain complex hummed beneath his boots, faint vibrations running up through the metal. It reminded him of warships he'd served on years ago, massive, alive machines with quiet power behind every surface. He didn't like the feeling, but this was no warship. This was worse. "Captain," came a voice behind him. He turned. It was Lieutenant Reelan, his communications officer, young and sharp-eyed. "We've completed the containment check. All readings stable. Reactor sealed. Power output? Normal. Idle state is holding. No anomalies." Reelan hesitated, then added, "Sir, the signal from the relay drone intercept. One of theirs." Jackson's face tightened. "Council Tech?" "Yes, sir. Varelian markings. High-frequency scan." So, they were watching. Or at least, they were curious. Maybe someone had talked. Maybe the rumors were growing teeth. He nodded once. "Destroy the data package. Run a full system sweep. I want that drone scrubbed from orbit before sunset." Reelan saluted and left without another word. Jackson remained, eyes locked on the horizon. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. Harrow's Reach had been founded to escape the wars, to give humans a fresh start at the edge of known space. No oversight. No interference. Just peace and self-reliance. But peace was a brittle thing in a galaxy full of predators. The Interstellar Accord, the so-called peace treaty, was built on fear. Every species signed it, but none trusted the others. Especially not humanity. After the expansion wars, the Accord let Terrans exist, but it never let them lead again. Harrow had stayed silent, unnoticed. That silence was about to break. The lift dropped him deep underground, level by level, past secure gates and armed checkpoints. Each floor bore the same gray, military design, cold lighting, reinforced walls, hushed voices. Only a few knew what the facility truly contained. Even fewer knew how it worked. At the core, level 0, the silence engine rested like a sleeping beast. Jackson entered the chamber. It was vast, round, and hollowed directly into the mountain. The engine itself floated at the center, suspended by 6 thick magnetic arms. It wasn't large, perhaps the size of a cargo shuttle, but its shape was strange, shifting, hexagonal plates rotating slowly, constantly rearranging. Like it was thinking. Dr. Mrenvok, the Valtari scientist who designed the core, stood beside it. His pale blue skin shimmered under the lights, his 4 eyes blinking in rhythm. "Captain," he said, "the engine's AI field is stable. Energy drain minimal. Can it still knock out communications across a sector?" Jackson asked. "More," Vok said proudly. "With current tuning, a single pulse can silence all artificial intelligence and faster-than-light signals within a radius of 12.4 light-years. No feedback, no warning. Just silence." Jackson stared at the device. It didn't glow. It didn't pulse. It simply hovered, quiet, confident, and lethal. "It's not a weapon," he said, as if trying to convince himself. Vok raised a brow. "Then what is it?" Jackson didn't answer. He turned and walked toward the control platform. Screens showed simulations, AI grids shutting down, fleets falling into chaos, planets losing contact. The engine didn't destroy. It erased the galaxy's ability to react. That was worse in some ways. Later that evening, Jackson returned to his quarters. His room was simple, bare walls, old metal desk, and a soft chair worn with time. A photo sat on the table. 3 people, himself, Commander Alarivas, and General Marcus Ray, years ago, smiling, before everything fell apart. He poured a glass of dark scent whiskey and sat by the window. From here, he could see the colony lights. Thousands of them. Families, workers, children, all sleeping peacefully, unaware of what lay beneath them. He told himself he built the engine for them. For peace. But peace never came for free. His wrist console buzzed. Incoming message. Encrypted. Not local. Not friendly. He tapped the screen. A hologram flickered to life. High Consul Varric Thurin appeared, tall, cloaked in silver, eyes cold and narrow. "Captain Jackson Morrow," Varric said calmly. "We know what your colony is built. Deactivate the device. Dismantle the program, or Harrow's Reach will be treated as an act of war." Jackson said nothing. The signal ended. The stars outside looked farther away now. He finished his drink. Then he whispered to no one. Let them come. The War Council met at dawn. Thick storm clouds rolled over the mountain range surrounding Harrow's Reach, casting a gray shadow across the colony's command complex. Inside, in a secure chamber beneath the central tower, the colony's senior leadership gathered, military, engineering, and civilian alike. Captain Jackson Morrow stood at the head of the table, arms crossed, jaw locked. The silence after he played the High Consul's threat echoed through the room like a physical weight. The message was clear. The galaxy knew. And the galaxy was afraid. Dismantle the engine, said Counselor Heron, a civilian leader with sharp features and a nervous tone. If we don't comply, the Council will send fleets. Thousands of ships. We're one colony, Captain. One. We're more than one, said Commander Tara Solis, Jackson's second-in-command. Her voice was calm, but her eyes burned with fire. We're a signal. A message. If we give up now, we tell the galaxy we're weak, and they'll never leave us alone again. The silence engine was never meant for war, Heron snapped. It was meant to protect. But now it's a target. You've made us a target. Jackson didn't flinch. He'd heard the same fear in voices long ago, on other worlds. Before they fell. We built it, he said evenly, because peace is temporary. Because treaties fail. And when they do, no one comes to save colonies like Harrow. We built it so no one would ever try to touch us again. Dr. Mrenvok stood from his seat, his smooth blue hands folded in front of him. The science holds. The pulse can disable AI fleets. No one would risk a direct attack once it's activated. But the question now isn't whether it works. It's whether we use it or lose it. The room shifted in unease. A low tension hung in the air, like static before a storm. Jackson leaned forward. We don't fire it unless we must. But we don't dismantle it. Not now. Varekthulin gave us a choice. Yes, but it was a threat, not a negotiation. Someone at the far end of the table coughed. So what do? We prepare, Jackson said. We lock the engine down. We reinforce the shield grid. And we get ready, because the Council's not just sending messages anymore. They're coming. He was right. 3 hours later, long-range scans picked up a foreign object entering orbit. Small. Stealth class. Not a ship. A probe. Lieutenant Reeland confirmed it within minutes. Stealth drone. Council tech. Class 9 surveillance. It's watching us now, sir. Can it transmit? Jackson asked. Yes. It's relaying data and pulses. Not direct. Through dark space nodes. Masked routing. Jackson didn't hesitate. Scramble interceptors. I want it burned before it leaves orbit. 2 Terran fighters launched within seconds. They curved through the sky like hawks, engines glowing blue against the pale daylight. Within moments, the drone was gone, vaporized in a silent flash above the clouds. But it was too late. The galaxy knew more than it should. And the leak was internal. That night, Jackson called a private meeting with Commander Solis, Dr. Voke, and Admiral Bryn Caro, the head of Harrow's orbital defense. We have a breach, Jackson said plainly. Someone here sent specs. Maybe not full blueprints, but enough. That drone didn't show up by luck. The Council knows what we have, and how dangerous it is. Admiral Caro's face darkened. Sabotage? Jackson nodded. Or betrayal? Solis leaned forward. I can lock down the security teams. Double watch on all terminals, all clearances monitored. If someone's leaking data, they'll slip again. Jackson looked at Voke. Can the engine be moved? Voke hesitated. No. The core is tied to the mountain's magnetic fields. You move it, you risk a cascade collapse. A shutdown, if we're lucky. An implosion, if we're not. Then we defend it here, Jackson said. No matter what. Just past midnight, alarms blared. An explosion rocked the lower research level. Fire suppression systems kicked in, sealing off the floor. Security raced through the corridors. By the time Jackson arrived, smoke filled the hallway. A breach had been made in Sector D, only one level above the silence engine. The saboteur was dead, shot by auto turrets. He wore no insignia. His face was human, but his DNA scan came back blank. A clone, programmed and dumped into the colony. Not just a message now, a warning. Jackson stood in the engine chamber again, watching it, listening. The soft hum had changed. Barely, but he noticed. Do you fear it? Came a voice behind him. It was Solis. She stepped beside him, hands clasped behind her back. No, Jackson said. I fear what it forces us to become. She didn't speak for a moment. Then she said, they'll come for it. In force. You know that. I'm counting on it, he said. Why? Jackson looked at her. Because once they come, we show them. Not just what it can do, but what we're willing to do to keep it. That's how we survive. Outside, storms rolled across the sky. But deep underground, the real storm had just begun. Rain lashed the rooftops of Harrow's Reach. The colony was built to endure weather, but not the kind of storm that was now coming. Not from the skies, but from the stars. Captain Jackson Morrow stood alone in the memorial chamber, deep inside the central tower. It was a quiet place, one few visited anymore. The walls displayed the names of Terrans lost in the expansion wars, carved into black stone, backlit by soft white lights. His fingers traced one of the names, Commander Alaravos, his closest friend. Gone in a battle the galaxy never acknowledged, on a planet no one remembered. She had died because he hesitated, because he waited for orders that never came. He hadn't made that mistake since. Jackson stepped into the war room, where the rest of the leadership team was already gathered. The holo display showed multiple ship signatures moving along the outer system's edge. Lieutenant Reeland pointed to the scans. Scout ships. For confirmed council classes. They're keeping distance, but they're watching. Admiral Caro added, no weapons charged yet, but they're mapping our defense grid. Probing for weakness. Commander Solis shook her head. This is how it starts. They're not asking questions. They're preparing for war. Jackson stayed silent for a moment, then nodded. Increase orbital patrols. Lock down traffic in and out of the colony. From this point forward, no unauthorized communication leaves Harrow. Reeland hesitated. That includes civilian channels, sir. Families. I know what it includes, Jackson said, his voice low but firm. If even one message leaks, we lose the element of control. Vogue stepped forward, holding a data pad. You need to see this. It's about the engine. He tapped the screen. The holo shifted to show a new simulation. We ran a deeper scan of the AI disruption field. We knew it could disable military AI and communication networks. But the field's reach is expanding faster than expected. Jackson frowned. How far now? 12.4 light-years. Maybe more. But that's not the problem. Vogue zoomed in on another chart. The pulse doesn't differentiate. It shuts down everything: medical AI, agriculture bots, climate control systems. Entire colonies could go dark. Not just ships. Not just soldiers. The room went still. You're saying we build a weapon that can kill civilians, Solis said slowly. I'm saying we build a weapon that doesn't care what it kills, Vogue corrected. Jackson stared at the projection. He had always known the weapon was powerful, but this was worse. He had planned for a shield, a deterrent. Not something that could shut down a world's lungs. Later that evening, Jackson returned to his quarters. He poured a glass of water and sat by the window, the rain tapping softly on the glass. He stared at the stars. He remembered the day Harrow voted to build the engine. It had been unanimous. After the fall of Mindrus, when a rogue alien fleet attacked a peaceful human colony and the Accord had done nothing, no one wanted to be vulnerable again. They had all agreed. Build something that no one would dare challenge. Build something to keep Harrow safe. But now? Now the galaxy knew. And Jackson wasn't sure if safety was still possible. The next day brought more bad news. A merchant vessel arriving from the neighboring human colony Vetra failed to respond to contact protocols. When Harrow's interceptors approached, they found the ship drifting, lights out, no power. The crew was alive but unconscious, breathing through emergency oxygen packs. Every automated system had failed. Vogue analyzed the ship for hours. This wasn't mechanical failure, he said. This was a field test. Someone activated a protopulse on the ship to see how the silence engine works in space. You mean someone used our tech against us? Jackson asked. Vogue looked troubled. Or they've already built their own version. That evening, Jackson met with Solis in his office. The lights were dim, the air thick with quiet tension. I've lost control of this, Jackson admitted. You haven't, Solis replied. You're just realizing what control costs. He looked at her. If we use it, we risk innocent lives. If we don't use it, the council attacks. We lose either way. Solis leaned forward. Maybe there's a third option. A way to show them what we're capable of, without using it on people. Jackson didn't answer right away. The idea had crossed his mind, too. A demonstration. A warning shot. But if it failed, Harrow would be crushed. And if it worked too well, the galaxy might never trust humans again. The next day, Jackson stood again in the engine chamber. The machine floated in silence, still, patient. He spoke aloud, knowing no one could hear him. I built you to protect us. But I don't know if you're protecting us, or turning us into something worse. A small hum answered him, low and steady. Not from the engine, but from deep inside the walls. A signal. A tap on the door of power. And somewhere far away, Council warships began to move. The air in the war room felt heavy, tense. Even the humming lights overhead seemed quieter than usual. Captain Jackson Morrow stood at the center of the room, arms behind his back, eyes locked on the large holomap projected in the air. Red markers pulsed slowly in the outer orbit of Harrow's Reach. Council ships. Not scouts anymore. Warships. 15 confirmed vessels. 2 carriers. 1 battleship. Armed. Waiting. They've crossed into our system, Admiral Caro said, his voice firm but grim. They're not here to talk. Jackson didn't reply. He didn't need to. The entire room already understood. Lieutenant Reelan added, they're hailing us. Audio only. Encryption level is high. They want a private channel. Put it through, Jackson ordered. The room dimmed, and a cold, sharp voice filled the air. Captain Jackson Morrow, said High Consul Varek Theron. This is your final warning. Deactivate and dismantle the silence engine. Open your colony to inspection. If you do not comply within 24 standard hours, we will take action. Silence followed. Jackson waited, then responded. We will not surrender our right to defend ourselves. You do not possess the right to threaten peace with weapons of mass disruption, Varek replied. You've crossed a line, Captain, and the galaxy will not tolerate it. The line went dead. The map glowed red. The countdown had begun. The emergency sirens rang through Harrow's Reach. All non-essential systems shut down. Military personnel moved through the colony, sealing checkpoints and loading defense grids. Civilians were ordered into bunkers. The streets emptied quickly. No panic, just cold fear. Commander Solis walked beside Jackson as they made their way to the defense tower. Are we ready? She asked. No, Jackson said honestly. But that won't stop them. Inside the command center, engineers and officers worked rapidly at their stations. Shields were charging. Anti-orbit weapons were primed. The colony had been preparing for this moment for months. But preparation didn't mean certainty. The enemy had more ships, more weapons, more everything. Except one thing. The engine. Jackson entered the core chamber alone. The silence engine hovered silently in the air, rotating gently, as if untouched by the chaos above. Its plates shifted, alive, waiting. Dr. Voke was already there, hunched over the control console. I've calibrated the field radius, Voke said. We can launch a test pulse into empty space. A warning. What about safety? Jackson asked. If we fire into the designated dead zone, no colonies, no ships, we avoid casualties. But the effect will still ripple across the nearby systems. Everyone will feel it. Jackson stared at the machine. If he used it, Harrow might be spared. The galaxy might back off. But it would also mark humanity forever. As a threat. A danger. Something to fear. And yet, doing nothing would guarantee their end. A soft buzz came from his wrist console. A private message. Solis. There's movement, she said. The Council fleet is advancing. 20 hours left, maybe less. That evening, Jackson called a meeting with his inner circle, Solis, Caro, Reelan, Voke, and 2 civilian leaders. The silence engine was never meant to be used first, Jackson said. But this is different. We're not firing at them. We're firing near them. To show them what it's capable of. Counselor Heron looked alarmed. You're saying we fire it at empty space and hope they get scared? I'm saying we prove we're not bluffing, Jackson said. And we do it without killing anyone. What if they see it as aggression, she asked. They already do, Solis answered before Jackson could. This is our last chance to show strength without starting a war. Voke tapped the table. We need to decide. Activation takes 6 hours. Cooling systems must be stabilized before the pulse. If we wait too long, it won't be ready. Jackson nodded slowly. Then we start now. 6 hours later, deep within the mountain, the silence engine began to glow. Soft at first, then brighter. Its plates moved faster, spinning like the blades of a quiet storm. Lights blinked across the chamber. Energy levels climbed. Voke monitored the pulse countdown. Coordinates locked. Target zone clear. Pulse ready in 90 seconds. Jackson stood in the center of the chamber, Solis beside him. Neither spoke. They didn't need to. Above them, in orbit, the Council ships hovered in silence. Still waiting. Still watching. Back in the command center, Reelan began the transmission. It was sent to all known Council frequencies. A simple message. Observe. And understand. The countdown hit 0. The pulse launched. No light. No sound. Just silence. Across space, in the targeted sector, artificial intelligence systems flickered off. Communication nodes died. Relay satellites dropped from sync. Everything went still for exactly 60 seconds. Then, just as suddenly, everything came back. No damage. No destruction. But the message was loud and clear. This is what we can do. In the war room, the red fleet markers began to shift. Council ships stopped moving. Some changed direction. Others went dark, retreating, or pausing to assess. Reelan watched the feed. They're pulling back. Jackson said nothing. He exhaled, then turned away from the screen. The silence engine powered down. The lights dimmed. The mountain went still again. But nothing felt safe. Nothing felt calm. Solis looked at him. We bought time. Yes, Jackson said. But not peace. Not yet. Far above, in his command ship, High Consul Varek Thuan watched the silent recording of the pulse. No expression. Just thought. Calculation. He whispered to his aide, the Terrans have made their point. The aide nodded. Shall we prepare for retaliation? Varek's eyes narrowed. Not yet. But make no mistake. This is not over. The sun rose slowly over Harrow's Reach, casting a cold blue light across the colony. The storm had passed, but the air still carried weight, like the sky itself was holding its breath. Everyone in the colony had felt the change. The pulse had come and gone, unseen but unmistakable. Systems had flickered. AI cores had paused. Communication slowed. For one long minute, the galaxy went silent. And now, it was listening. In the command center, Captain Jackson Morrow stood in front of the main holomap. Red enemy signals had faded. The fleet had pulled back to the edge of the system. No new threats had appeared. But there was no celebration. No applause. Only questions. Commander Solis stood beside him, arms crossed. They're waiting for our next move. They're measuring it, Jackson replied. Trying to decide if they can control it or if they should destroy it. They won't risk another demonstration, said Admiral Caro. You showed them enough. Jackson nodded slowly. We showed them what we could do, but not what we will do. That's still undecided. The Council's reply came not by fleet, but by transmission. High Consul Varek Thuan appeared once again, this time on a secure channel. No threats. No ultimatums. Only a request. Captain Morrow, the Oversight Council proposes a direct negotiation. On neutral ground. We recognize your intent was not offensive, but such power cannot remain unchecked. Jackson stared at the message. He had expected threats. Bombs. Not this. Solis leaned over the console. They want to talk now? They want to delay, Jackson said. By time to build something of their own. Voke entered, holding a data pad. His face was unusually serious. There's more, he said. I intercepted chatter from a Varelian network. Someone inside the council is proposing a joint task force to seize or dismantle the engine by force. If talks fail, they'll strike. Jackson clenched his jaw. Then we're back to the same choice. That afternoon, Jackson addressed the colony's leadership. The room was full council members, military officers, engineers, and civilians. He stood at the front, hands steady, voice clear. We've sent our message. The galaxy now knows what we have and what we can do. We didn't fire on a city. We didn't destroy a fleet. We proved a point, peace through strength. But strength alone invites fear. Fear invites retaliation. He looked around the room, eyes locked on him, waiting. The silence engine is a shield. It was never meant to become a sword. That's why, starting tonight, we begin a controlled dismantling of the engine. Murmurs broke out across the room. Volk's face darkened. Solis looked stunned. Jackson raised a hand. We will dismantle it publicly, under council observation. But I will retain one backup core, stored securely. Hidden. Unknown. That's our insurance. If the galaxy betrays its promises, we rebuild. Counselor Heron spoke up. Won't that violate the terms of disarmament? Jackson didn't blink. They built fleets behind peace treaties. We'll keep one piece of the engine for when peace fails again. No one argued. The dismantling began that night. Council ships remained at a distance, watching from orbit. A single Varelian diplomat was allowed into Harrow to observe. No weapons. No escort. Just eyes. Inside the engine chamber, the magnetic arms unlocked. The plate stopped spinning. Energy drained. The power core was lifted from its cradle, glowing with soft blue light. Vogt guided the process, his hands gentle but firm. Solis monitored every step. Jackson watched from above, silent, arms folded. Piece by piece, the silence engine was taken apart. 3 days passed. The parts were sealed in reinforced vaults. Most would be surrendered. One, just one, was hidden in a secure underground chamber known only to Jackson, Solis, and Voke. No network connection. No AI. Just silence. A memory. A warning. A last resort. When the council envoy departed, Jackson stood with him at the docking bay. Varekthun's voice came through the diplomat's hollow feed, crisp and calm. Captain Morrow, you've shown restraint. The council acknowledges your compliance. Harrow's reach will remain under observation, but no further action will be taken for now. Jackson nodded once. We didn't want war. We still don't? Let us hope your people remember that, Varek said. Then the feed went silent. The diplomat boarded his shuttle and left. That night, Jackson returned to the memorial chamber. The names on the wall glowed softly. He looked at Alara's name again. He whispered, "It's over. For now." Solis entered behind him. Do you think they'll keep their word? No, Jackson said. But they'll remember what happened here. In the hidden vault, deep underground, the backup core of the Silence engine rested in a stasis field. Unpowered. Waiting. Jackson had written one line on the vault door. In case peace fails again. Weeks passed. The skies over Harrow's Reach were clear once more. The Council fleets had left orbit, drifting back into the stars. Trade routes reopened. Civilian systems returned to full function. Children played in the parks again, unaware of how close their colony had come to disappearing from the galaxy's map. But peace, Captain Jackson Morrow knew, was never simple. And never free. The Silence engine was gone, at least officially. What remained were fragments, scattered and sealed away under Council supervision. Diplomatic teams from Varelian, Tarsi, and human coalition worlds rotated in and out of Harrow, watching, documenting, reporting. All pretending the same thing, that everything was under control. And yet, fear remained. Jackson sat in his office one quiet evening, overlooking the colony below. The lights of Harrow glowed soft and steady, stretching across the valley like stars trapped beneath glass. He sipped from a worn steel cup, water this time, not whiskey. The war room was empty, the alarms silent. No threats on the horizon. Commander Solis entered without knocking, carrying a data pad. Her face was calm, but focused. They've sent a proposal, she said. A permanent inspection agreement. Monthly visits. Surprise audits. Long-term satellite surveillance. Jackson nodded slowly. Expected. They're afraid of us now, she added. That won't go away. They should be, Jackson said quietly. He stood, took the data pad, and read the message in silence. They'll never trust us again, Solis said. They never trusted us to begin with. There was no anger in his voice. Just truth. Outside the colony's public halls, people walked freely again. Markets reopened. Transport shuttles came and went. But everywhere, eyes watched the skies. No one said it, but they all knew something had changed. Harrow had power now, not just from its weapons, but from the myth it had created. Other colonies began whispering. Terran settlers from distant systems reached out to Harrow. Some wanted protection. Others wanted blueprints. A few just wanted to know how they did it. Jackson refused every request. This isn't something to share, he told one counselor. It's something to remember. Deep beneath the surface, in the hidden vault no one else could access, the backup core of the Silence engine remained in stasis. Sealed in a locked chamber with no digital connection, protected by coded layers only Jackson, Solis, and Dr. Voke knew. Dr. Voke visited it once a week, running silent checks. It still worked. It was still waiting. Solis stood beside it one afternoon and asked him, "Do you think we'll ever use it again?" Voke shrugged. "If we do, it won't be a warning next time." She nodded. "That's what worries me." Jackson received one final transmission from High Consul Varekthun. The hologram flickered to life in his office. Varek looked as cold and unreadable as ever, his voice calm and smooth. "Captain Morrow, the Council acknowledges the successful dismantling of the weapon. We appreciate your cooperation. But make no mistake, should anything resembling the Silence engine ever be used again, Harrow will not be spared. There will be no second chance." Jackson didn't reply right away. Then simply, he said, "I hope you remember who wanted peace first." Varek's hologram paused, then ended without a word. Late at night, Jackson walked alone through the old engine chamber. It was empty now, quiet and cold. Dust gathered where power conduits used to run. The place looked harmless. He stood in the center, where the engine once hovered. He closed his eyes and imagined the hum, the spin, the glow of its plates, the silence that followed when it fired. He remembered the day he decided to build it. He remembered the people who doubted him. He remembered the war that nearly destroyed them all. Peace had returned. But peace, he knew, was fragile. He turned to leave, footsteps echoing through the hollow space. On the wall near the exit, someone had written in small black letters, "The day the galaxy listened." The next morning, Jackson stood before a group of new recruits. Young men and women. Some born on Harrow, others refugees from failed colonies. All of them now defenders of something larger than just a planet. He gave them no long speech. Just a few simple words. "We protect peace. Not with fear, but with resolve." They saluted. He nodded once, then walked away. Above Harrow's reach, the stars shone quietly. The galaxy had stepped back, but not forgotten. And in the silence left behind, Captain Jackson Morrow prepared for whatever came next.